Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to look at human choices through a really different and honestly fascinating new lens. We're going to explore this idea of mapping our intentions, our motivations, even our psychological states, but with the kind of precision you'd find in geometry. So let's just dive right in.
So, let me just start with a pretty big question. What if every single choice you make, from what you had for breakfast to the huge life-altering decisions, what if each one could be plotted as a point on a map of your own internal world? What would that even look like?
Well, believe it or not, that's exactly what we're digging into today. There's this framework called vector field theory, or VFT for short, and it's this really bold attempt to create a kind of structured geometry of what's possible, a literal map of our consciousness and our intentions.
So, here's how we're going to navigate this whole idea. First, we're going to look at the terrain itself, the paper the map is drawn on. Then, we'll find our compass and figure out its true north. After that, we'll explore what this theory calls the 4 cardinal directions of the soul, and finally, we'll get into why having a map like this matters in the first place.
All right, so first things first. Every good map needs a landscape, right? You need some kind of terrain to chart. And in vector field theory, that terrain has a name: the field of chance. This is the foundational space where all of our choices, past, present, and future, actually exist.
Now, the field of chance isn't a physical place you can go visit. It's what the theory calls a probability landscape. A better way to think about it is it's the very fabric of possibility itself. It's this structured geometric space where everything that could happen lives.
And this landscape, it's got 6 dimensions. You can think of them as the classic questions you'd ask about any action. According to this theory, any choice can be pinpointed by asking, who is doing the choosing? What are the real options and constraints? Where are they, physically? Why are they even doing it? How are they going to pull it off? And what's the link between cause and effect here? You see, every choice we make is a specific point located somewhere in this big 6-dimensional space.
Okay, so if that's our massive landscape, how in the world do we navigate it? We're going to need a compass. And VFT says our internal compass is actually pretty simple. It's built on just 2 fundamental perpendicular axes. Let's take a look at what they are.
And here they are. It's actually pretty elegant. The horizontal axis is morality. And it's a simple question. Who benefits from this action? Is it you or is it the group? The vertical axis is what's called will. And this measures your mode of action, basically your fundamental approach to time and what you see as possible.
Let's look a little closer at that morality axis. The source material uses this really powerful biological analogy. It calls it the cellular contract. So selfishness is basically like a cancer cell. It comes from this glitch in its identity, where the cell just forgets it's part of a bigger body. It starts acting only for itself, and eventually it destroys its own environment and itself. Altruism, on the other hand, is the healthy cell. It gets it. It understands. I am the body. And by working with the whole system, it actually thrives.
Now for that vertical axis, will. And this is super important. We're not talking about pessimism and optimism as in, being grumpy or cheerful. In VFT, these are really precise, almost mechanical terms. So, pessimism is defined as a state that only considers the past. It's a refusal to move forward. It sees every problem as this impossible mountain you could never climb. Optimism is the exact opposite. It's the will to accept what's happened and just move on. It's proactive. It sees a clear path to a solution, a kind of downhill slope that naturally pulls you toward getting it done.
Okay, so we've got our landscape and we've got our 2-axis compass. So what happens when we put them together? Well, we get 4 cardinal directions, 4 fundamental psychological archetypes that can describe our state of being at any given moment. And boom, here it is. This is really the heart of the whole idea. So let's just walk through it. Up in the top left, we combine that proactive, optimistic will with altruistic morality. That's the architect, someone who is actively building for the greater good. Now, top right, you take that same optimistic will, but combine it with selfish morality. That's the tyrant, who actively and effectively works to steal for themselves, the greatest lie. Down in the bottom left, you have a pessimistic will, but with an altruistic morality. That's the monk, who wants peace for everyone, but doesn't have that proactive drive to build it, the lesser good. And finally, bottom right, pessimistic will and selfish morality. That's the nihilist, who is just rotting alone in the greater evil.
So you might be looking at this and thinking, okay, this is a cool mental exercise, but so what? What's the point? Why does having a map like this even matter?
Well, the big idea here is that it gives us a new language, a new toolkit, really. It gives us a way to more precisely talk about not just what we're doing, but why we're doing it, and in which direction our actions are really taking us. It's a tool for looking inward for sure, but also for analyzing the motivations of others beyond just simple labels like good or bad. It's way more structured than that.
And this is probably the most important thing to remember, and it's a quote straight from the source material. This whole framework, it's not claiming to be the absolute truth about reality. It's a map. And just like any good map, its value isn't whether it's perfectly ontologically true. Its value is in its usefulness. Does it help us understand? Does it help us navigate? That's the real test.
So, I'll just leave you with this final thought to kind of chew on. If every choice you make is like a little arrow, a vector, pointing in a direction on this map, what happens when you add them all up? Where is the sum of all your choices pointing? Where are you actually headed?